All right. Music. The music was the theme of my presentation, so that's why I wanted to play it before. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes. Maybe I leave the song on for a bit so that more people can join, and then we will get started. All right, let's get started. First of all, thank you for being here at this late hour. I'm making an assumption because some of you might not be in the same time zone as I am, but still, I'm happy to have you all here. I'm a bit nervous, but I'm here to do this talk about testing. My name is Steffi. I'm a former marketeer who decided to transition to tech a couple of years ago. During this process, I struggled a lot. I thought it would be too late to do this in my 30s. I also thought it would be wrong to give up my marketing career. And I thought it would not be right to change my mind about what I wanted to do professionally. Being a developer comes with a lot of challenges. And tonight, I want to talk to you about the struggle I faced with unit testing and how, against all odds, I fell in love with it. Let's make sure I'm here. A disclaimer before we get into it. The title of this presentation is inspired by Cassidy Williams' TikTok about her initial steps with TypeScript, where she used the song Never Enough. So I didn't come up with this idea. And I've learned a lot from Cassidy's tutorials, courses, newsletter, and if you don't already follow her, I highly recommend doing so. You can find her at Cassidy. All right, let's get started. Why didn't I like testing? In order to answer this question, I want to go back to when I first learned about testing. This was at the coding school, where we were introduced to testing in JavaScript. And being someone who has worked in the tech sector for a while, I thought, from my understanding, that testing was something that was done by Q&A engineers and not software engineers. So that was confusing. But I thought I'm here to learn, so let's get to it. In order to make sense of it on the slide, you will see a code snippet of an animal class that has three properties: name, legs, and age. The reason why I'm showing you this is because I want to show you next the very first test that I have written. Here I'm testing that the animal class that we just saw before should be a class and that it should have the properties name, legs, and age. In all honesty, to me, this didn't make sense. If I put this maybe side by side, the class on the left and the test on the right, you might see it too. Writing this test was way more lines of code. It was testing, in my opinion, the obvious, like me, the one who wrote this class, I'm very confident with class. Less at that point, but questioned it for a while, and eventually I moved on. I had to build a tic-tac-toe game for an application, and this game was to be played in the terminal. And in order to make my game work properly, I had to run tests individually for each function. And to paint a better picture of this, I want to highlight the getWinner function. I hope everybody's familiar with this game, the tic-tac-toe game. We can, in order to win this game, we have to make a line horizontally or a line vertically or on a diagonal with our sign, either X or O. Here you can see that or that this will return X winner on the horizontally. So I have played this game 3 times for horizontal options, 3 times for vertical options, and twice for diagonal. It was quite painful. And at this point, I decided to give testing a try. We can see here the function I was talking about, the getWinner function. On the left, we see the winning combination. On the right is the function. And at the first glance, it looks good. But I would ask myself, and I would ask you, would you trust that your code works just by leaving it a chance? I myself would not do that. And here is where I took the decision to give testing a chance. And that was really, really helpful. Here we can see the tests for the getWinner function. I was testing first horizontally, that whenever I had like a horizontal winner, that was returned. I start here with the middle options, then you see the ones on the left and the ones on the right. This might be a bit harder to follow because it's like not the board that you visually see, but I hope you still can see it even though it's a 1-line array. Then I did the same for the vertical options. We can see I started with the left options, then the middle options, and then the ones farther on the right. As well, the 2 diagonals, where also you can notice that I was alternating 0 at X because I wanted to make sure that both options work well. And at the end, another test for the same function. I wanted to make sure that it should return null if there is no winner and if the game is not over yet. This was very important because this function got called at every step in the game, at every move. So I wanted to make sure that the game will not break in case of this function. And here is also like something that I want to highlight and show you further on. This test that we just saw checked the function to which the user would not have a direct influence on. What about a function to which a user has influence on? If you've been coding for a while, you might know that it's not a good idea to trust the user. And I'm referring in the next example on a function that would write on the board. So the computer would ask the user to give a position, which should be a number. And given this number that would have been received, we would position their mark. And here in this test, we can see the happy path. We can make the assumption that everything is going well, and the user gave us what was expected of them. But this is not always the case. Like, things can go wrong, right? For example, the user could send us anything but a number. They could add a symbol, they could add a letter, they can even add a space, and this might break our program, here in this case, game. And I wanted to make sure this would not happen. So even though you're not seeing the function that I wrote, looking by this test, you can understand what this function was responsible on as well. In case this happened, we would throw an error to the user asking them to give us a number. What else could go wrong? The user might try to occupy a spot that is already occupied, trying to cheat and make their way around. In this case, we have to also be careful and check for it and throw an error and let the user know that the spot is occupied in case that happens. And then we also have the case, maybe the user sends us a number. This number is not an occupied spot, but the position could be outside of the board. So as you can see, there are a few edge cases or corner cases on this sad pad. And by writing this test, I made sure that this would not break the program, and if something happened, that I would be aware of. To circle back to the very first example that I gave, here on the left, you can see a simplified class of the board, and on the right, a test. This might come a bit ironic now, because I am here testing what I said before, the obvious. I'm testing that the board that we have on the left is initialized at the beginning as an empty board, and that it contains 9th position. This was important because every time somebody restarted this game, I wanted to make sure that this game was started properly with an empty board so that it could be played. Bit ironic, but we're learning. I am learning from my past. So what did I learn in this process? First of all, I believe that writing tests makes me a better programmer. A few of the reasons I highlighted here, and I want to walk you through them. It makes me more comfortable and confident knowing that I have tests in place. It is very easy and it feels quite safe to refactor code when I know that I have tests. Because if I break something, this will not go unnoticed. The test will warn me, so I could not break my code without hearing about it. Also, my productivity increased and I had less bugs because as I was showing you in the examples before, I was thinking about what could go wrong, about those edge cases that we saw. Code quality also increased. In my testing, I used a TDD approach, test development driven approach, which meant I wrote the tests before I was writing the code. And that forced me to think critically and to clearly define what the code was responsible for. And last but not least, we saw from my test that it is quite easy to understand what the function is doing, and the test can serve as a great documentation tool for what the program does. That's all I have. To sum it up, I wanted to walk you through my journey with testing, how I was completely against it in the beginning, and I didn't find any value, to be someone who realized that, who discovered that testing makes me actually a better programmer, and that is something that I want to do in my job as a developer, and to be here in support of testing, and we're talking about unit testing, and to convince you, if you're not using this practice, to please give it a chance. Thank you very much.